And yet at the same time, in some of the Jane Roberts books I read, one of the most potent quotes to me is...
Who's Jane Roberts?
She is a psychic who allegedly spoke for another personality named Seth.
Oh, you loaned me one of these books.
I did. And I mean, this is something I could talk about for hours. This really goes to the basis of my beliefs and where they come from. The quote being, religion tells you that your life is sinful, and science tells you that your life is an accident, and neither one of those things is true. Mm-hmm. And he will often go into how Darwin messed us up because we misinterpreted what he says, and we think that survival of the fittest is the rule, and that's not the rule, but this is what's messed up our society at this point in time. He actually claims that religion, even when Catholicism was so dominant, it at least gave you a belief in another world outside of this one, where science takes all of that away. It's just darkness when you're gone, you know, and I refuse to believe that.
Yeah.
As much as I grew up in the age of space exploration, and I was totally into that as a child, and I totally love science and electronics, everything. It doesn't explain everything, and we have to get over this idea that these issues are resolved. And that's what I love about your faith, and that you are so into it, is it kind of doesn't matter what your faith is as long as it's not bad for you.
That was Jim Wright discussing the song Come Out and Play, which I wrote after being inspired by Psalm 34. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is The Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms inspire in my guests. Jim is a composer and musician who plays touch or tap guitar, a method of playing electric bass and guitar simultaneously by tapping the strings against the frets instead of strumming or picking them. He's been playing these instruments since 1978 and has been involved in advancing the art by developing new tunings and techniques for this unusual style of playing. Jim's music can be heard and seen on youtube.com/Georgie Tirebiter, all one word, and Georgie is spelled Georgie. And you can also find it at Jim Wright, JimWright.bandcamp.com. Fans describe Jim as one of the best tappers out there. He's also one of my first friends in Los Angeles. We discuss the genesis of this podcast, being the best person you can be, educating God, the importance of arguing with the right intentions, animism, humanism, the relationship between perception and reality, happy mistakes, and so much more. Let's start off by listening to Come Out and Play.
Student hunched, firmly grasping, composition notebook black, white specks, furious scratching, many questions to unpack, the constant muttering about what is right drives me away from you. The constant muttering about what is right drives me away from you. A raised hand asks for guidance. Can we teach anything to God? Put down my chalk, utter silence. Swallow terror, feeling odd. The constant muttering about what is right drives me away from you. The constant muttering about what is right drives me away from you. We all suffer pain and insults. I feel afraid. The world looks gray. Reverence is not my impulse. I want God to come out and play. Taste and see so many good things. Don't hide from the brewing storm. Pick a big thing that needs fixing. Hunger's something to reform. The constant muttering about what is right drives me away from you. The constant muttering about what is right drives me away from you. Drives me away from you. Drives me away.
Folks, I am here today with my friend Jim Wright. Do you want to tell the story of how we met, or do you want me to?
I was first arrived in Los Angeles in the late 80s and was playing at the Venice Boardwalk with a dear friend by the name of Shig Noda, who was an excellent flute player, somebody who played only flute. So many people play saxophone and flute, and Shig was just really good. And I forget how he and I met, but we decided, let's go play. And I was playing an instrument known as the Chapman stick at the time, and Shep walked by, and he was just fascinated by the instrument. I don't know if you'd seen it before or knew about it.
I was a big Tony Levin fan.
Oh, okay. So there you go. And all I remember you saying was, I want your number. You and I are going to work together. It was like one of the first things you said to me.
It was the second thing I said to you. Bringing Tony Levin, I'm still a huge fan of his. I said to you, so you were playing with Shig, some jazz standards.
Right.
Maybe Zappa. I'm not sure. But I said, do you know any King Crimson? And you immediately started playing Discipline, and that really got me. And that's when I said, you and I are going to be friends for life.
I have another funny story about that, but it's a little bit R-rated.
Go ahead, hit me.
I was in the conjugal act with a woman who was going to become my wife. This is many lifetimes ago. And Elephant Talk came on the FM radio.
Elephant Talk, for anyone who doesn't know it, is a King Crimson,
yes.
King Crimson song.
It starts with the stick. And I immediately realized that I was hearing the stick and had never heard it on the radio before. And I'd been playing it for about a year. And I immediately jumped out of bed and ran over and crouched in front of the stereo. And my friend was like, what are you doing? What's going on? What's the matter? And so I had to explain to her why I was fascinated by this particular tune and this particular band. That was the first time I had ever heard King Crimson. Oh, and of course, I'm a huge Adrian Belew fan.
Sure.
So there you go. And thankfully, Shep did ask me to work with him. And he's probably been one of my best friends in Southern California for 30 years now.
Yeah. Well, so we met I moved out here in 91. So we met probably either in my first few weeks that I arrived or my first 2 months that I arrived.
Oh, wow.
Venice Boardwalk was one of my favorite places to go.
We're looking at 30 years.
Yeah.
And I've been a recording engineer for Shep. We've played music together. I've run sound for events that he's put on. It's just been a wonderful friendship, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, right back at you.
I'm glad to be here today.
Some of my best music was done with you, including what I refer to as Jewgrass, the Ashira album, which we recorded up in your cabin.
I don't have a
And of course, there was Blithering Heights, too.
I was just about done playing the stick. I had just discovered the war guitar, and you guys said to me, we want to have this song, but we're not sure about it. Is there something you would add to it? And I came up with a really cool background line. Yeah, which made it sound like it was in an odd meter, even though it was in 4/4. And you said, I love it. Take out this note. And I removed one note, and you were absolutely right. It was perfect. And then you had me play a solo, and I just did an off-the-cuff crazy solo. It was the last recording I ever made on the stick.
Oh, no kidding.
Was that solo, and I love that solo.
It's a great solo. So back to Ashira, we recorded that album in response. So I was very active in a shul called a synagogue called B'nai David Judea. I grew up with the rabbi, and he knew that I played guitar, and I knew how to play kind of traditional sing-along, Jewish sing-along songs. It's called a kumzitz. So I started playing. I took a few years off after Blithering Heights did not go on its Southwest tour because my daughter Maya was born.
Oh, wow.
And, I was playing guitar for Maya, and that was it.
Maya's a good trade-off.
She's a great trade-off.
Yeah.
But then Rabbi Kanevsky asked me if I would lead a kumzitz, and I started leading kumzitzes for B'nai David. I'm very band-oriented. Even singing lead in a band context is harder for me. There are some people who are just brilliant singers, brilliant front people. And I was always uncomfortable with that. I was much more comfortable being in the background, standing next to the drummer, playing bass or playing guitar parts that operated like a bass when you had a brilliant bass player like a Dan Day who could really kind of take some of the responsibilities that guitars otherwise would. So that's why I played these very kind of lockdown, groove-oriented guitar parts, and Dan could just go nuts.
Yeah.
That's a much more comfortable thing for me. So, I started playing with Ashira, and when Rabbi Kanevsky asked me to start doing kumzitzes, I invited other people to do it with me. So it wasn't just me and a guitar and 20 or 50 people singing. It was me and 2 or 3 guitars, and eventually a violin and an accordion and whatever.
Right.
My orientation is towards these group constructs.
It's so much more interesting to have other people provide input onto what you're doing. And that's what you need, those accidents.
You need the conversation, the trade-off. We graduated from playing kumzitzes to Rabbi Kanevsky saying, at a particular simcha, a joyous event, I don't know if it was a bris, a circumcision, or if it was an engagement or what.
Sure.
Rabbi Kanevsky mumbled under his breath, I wish we had our own music. And I took that back to the band because we had been now playing as a band for various synagogue events. And I said, you guys want to start writing songs? And we did. And thus the Ashira album was born. B'nai David does not use any of those songs, but we had a good time doing it anyway.
And to this day, you're a very prolific songwriter.
Yes. So if I didn't have a full-time job and a family, I would write even more than I do. I'm no Leonard Cohen, though I would like to be. Nor am I a Robert Fripp or an Adrian Belew or, a Jimmy Page or Robert Plant. I'm Shabsa. That's my Hebrew name. Shabsa, right? I'm Shep Rosenman. I am who I am, right?
Okay.
And when I meet my maker is going to ask me, were you the best Shabsa you can be? And I hope that this songwriting thing is a part of my answer in which I respond. Absolutely. Look how many songs I wrote, and look how many songs I wrote that explore the themes that you, God, want us to explore. And, if there is no God, then whatever, I've still had a good time doing it.
Yeah.
The conversations to me are actually on some level more important than the songs, because what I'm looking to do here is to get, you said before, it's all about the happy mistakes. It's all about the interplay.
Yes.
And I write these songs. I mean, the ones I write with my friend Liz Hanlon, okay, that's one thing. The ones I write with other friends of mine who say, hey, I want to do one of these with you. That's another thing.
Okay.
But most of these are just me the text, the guitar, the mandolin, the keyboard. That's that. So these conversations are an opportunity to take this thing that I'm doing outside of the four walls of this little studio and see what the world has to say. Where were your curiosities?
Okay.
What are your inspirations from the song? And in this way, we build a virtuous circle, because I was inspired by the psalmist.
Okay.
Traditional Jews refer to the psalmist as David, right? The Psalms of David. But we know some of them were Solomon, some of them were Moses, and even the ones that are David, some of us are not sure of the authorship. But for ease of use, it's the Psalms of David. If I'm inspired by the Psalms of David and I wrote this song, what in the song or the psalm or both inspired you? Where was your curiosity?
In a lot of places, because partly, the first thing I notice about this particular song,
it's number 34,
and it's called Come Out and Play. Several things stand out to me. First of all, it's a kind of a Antonio Carlos Jobim kind of a setting, a samba maybe. And the first verse setting is almost like a classroom, and how the students are relating to the instructor. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Okay. But then it kind of goes out from there, and it becomes this really fascinating thing about, can I teach something to God? I was raised in a very Protestant atmosphere.
What does that mean for those who don't know?
Good question. I'm not sure I can answer it correctly, except to say that it was a good grounding in the Christian faith, but as I grew older and moved away from it, I was thankful that it didn't have its hooks in me like I have seen some other people that were involved in serious Christianity. My first introduction to Judaism was this church. It was the late 60s, early 70s. I was part of the youth group. One of the wonderful things that they did for us was to take us to other faiths' events. And one of the things we did was go to a Bas mitzvah.
Oh, wow.
And it was an oh, wow. The only other thing that was as joyous to me was when we went to the Unitarian Church, and they actually performed a section of a Tennessee Williams play, which had some very, at that time especially, hot button issues in the play, which surprised me as a teenager. But the bat mitzvah, I think I have it was for a girl, right?
Bas and bat both work. It's a pronunciation issue.
We all had the time of our lives. It was just so much fun. Everybody was welcoming, as opposed to, say, going to an Orthodox Catholic thing where there was the incense and the intonation and all that kind of stuff. It didn't affect me as deeply as going to that. So it was so nice when I met you and got to be part of some of your events and see that this is a theme throughout the Jewish faith, is getting together, being able to argue about things, and it just makes me love it even more. So, yes, can we teach God? In the Christian religion, God is omnipotent and he's perfect. So no, I don't believe you can teach God.
Interesting.
My own personal feelings now as I've evolved is that, of course, we are God, and we are having these experiences to enrich God. So I think that's a wonderful question, but it gets dealt with in an interesting way in your song.
Can you say a bit more about we are God, and we do this for, how did you phrase it? For God's benefit, for God's enjoyment?
For God's education. I have evolved so far away from Christianity in my life to the point where I'm basically somewhere between humanism and animism. I think that everything is alive.
Some people may not know what those words mean. Can you define them?
I would encapsulate humanism. I'm a big reader of Kurt Vonnegut. Humanism, I think he said it really well. I think it was something his brother always said was, we're here to help each other get through this thing, whatever it is.
Wow.
And I think that animism is just the belief that American Indians held that was considered antiquated now, that everything is alive, everything is consciousness. And that is how God is represented in our world. And we take our world very seriously, but it is not the only world.
Right.
That's my personal feeling.
Just again, for the purposes of understanding. So does that suggest that concrete and this microphone and mic stand are alive?
They are conscious. They are made of consciousness.
Wow.
Everything is made of consciousness.
Right. So that's a very intense worldview, because if everything is conscious, one of the intersections of Judaism and Buddhism is a focus on intentionality.
Okay.
So when you are about to sit and cut the bread on a Saturday afternoon, because it's a representation of what was going on in the temple 2,000 years ago, we are supposed to bring the temple, the holiness of the temple, into our homes, literally on our table, which is supposed to be like a mizbeach, like an altar. We're replicating that moment because we are all manifestations of the priesthood, because we are bringing God's holiness to the world in some way. Like,
okay,
as you're cutting bread, you're thinking, I am a manifestation of God's holiness. There's a level of intentionality that is hard enough in Judaism, which does not posit that the mic stand has consciousness. Once you posit that the mic stand, the chairs we're sitting on, and the table, that the backup iPhone and the tea that I'm drinking, right, have consciousness, there's a reverence that comes along with that.
Absolutely.
So what's that like?
Well, I'm just now kind of catching up on my Joseph Campbell. And this comes after a couple of deep dives into some Robert Graves, which I could talk about for hours. He was a poet laureate in England in the 20s and 30s.
Okay.
He wrote the book I, Claudius,
right,
which has become kind of a map for historical novels. And in that book, even, they argue about, should history be taught as a series of facts and figures, or should we try to get into the minds of, in I, Claudius,
right.
who was an incredibly fascinating person. And the wonderful thing about Graves is that he was able to read Greek and would go back to all the original scriptures and read them in their original language. And this is what I think is so important about Judaism, too, is you haven't corrupted the original language of it. And even in our conversation today, you're constantly using the original Hebrew words, which I think has an importance in that faith.
Mm-hmm. How intense is it to have that level of intentionality if everything around you is alive? I mean, does it go to the level of you're playing your war guitar, and do you experience your war guitar's consciousness?
Okay, everything's alive. I would relate it to the unified field theory that Einstein was looking for.
Say more.
We're all made out of the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would tie it in with Eastern philosophy that our world is an illusion and our perceptions are what creates our reality. So I can't say that I definitely feel aliveness in objects or anything. It's just, for me, as I've gone through life, there are certain things that resonate with me, and I don't know why. And to me, that is what faith is like, and you have to be careful because it's easy to take on ideas that would be harmful to logic.
Sure.
And so you have to, it's that triangulation. For example, just to use an analogy, if I look at news and I see a story reported that interests me, and I want to know how true it is, I'm going to try to find it in at least two other news sources and see what they say about it.
If only all of America did that.
Yes. Well, and it gets harder and harder. I mean, we won't even get into that. But I try to do the same thing philosophically with this. And I see back to the Joseph Campbell, where he agrees with other things that I've read about this whole idea of consciousness. And he's getting all that through myth. And the Robert Graves book that I would recommend to people who really want to do a deep dive is called The White Goddess. He shows how repeatedly this triple goddess thing has come up throughout history. And of course, I'm sure if you go back far enough in recorded history, women were the people who ran the temples. And there was a schism that came at some point where the men decided, we're going to take over this job. And here we are today in a male-dominated world. 10,000 years ago, before recorded history, women ran.
Yeah. Well, in some households like mine, the women still run the house. In our family, I was nominally responsible for all things Jewish and ritual, But Sherry remained the barometer. If I went too far, she was unhappy.
Uh-huh.
Right. And if we weren't part of something, she was unhappy.
Okay.
Having grown up Orthodox, I have a particular perspective that she does not have, having grown up. She refers to herself as a high holiday Jew. So it's basically going to synagogue, but not understanding what was going on.
Right.
So like you combine those two things, it's like a Reese's peanut butter cup. It's still a great flavor, but it's a different flavor, and you've got to find a balance that works between you and, for the family. And that's why, even though I was responsible, she was ultimately kind of in charge.
Interesting. It's the chemistry. And again, it's like you're saying about being in a band. I mean, it's fun to be the top dog, and it's easy to be a soloist and just pick up your guitar and go to a jam, and there you are, one person. But you don't get that interplay when you're writing by yourself, that, when you're working with other people, somebody says, hey, this is great right here, but what if we tried this? And then you try it and you're like,
1,000%. I mean, look, there are times where I will write a song and it comes out whole. It does not need any editing. But however I play it on my own,
right,
inevitably, if I brought it to you, you would do something different with it.
Of course, yeah.
Right? If I'm playing a C major here, you might decide to play a D minor.
And as a producer, I have had trouble with people on that too, that I'm changing their vision too much, know.
Like, my view is, when you go into the studio, all bets are off. Whatever you thought it was, you may need to rethink it entirely.
Right.
Because what sounds good to you at home alone is going to change the minute you bring someone else in. Like, I will never, ever, ever be as good a bass player as Dan Day. But Dan was never, ever, ever able to replicate the bass line that I wrote in silence.
Fred is my friend. Fred is my neighbor. Fred just sits on his...
He played his version of it.
Fred is my friend. Fred is my neighbor. Fred just sits on his porch and waits for time.
It was better.
That's
but
funny.
He could never play what I originally played.
That's funny.
And it's okay. He improved it. I don't care.
Well, and I would even apply that to, it took me a long time to do the album that I released in 2016, at least 10 years. And it would be hard to get myself motivated to work on it. And my point relating to what you're saying is that even when it was just me working on it, I would have this concept. But once I started the process of working on it, it would change. And that was okay. And that was what made it interesting, was that during the process of making it, I would throw in new ideas, or something new would come into it. I can't even describe what it is.
So this connects me back to
The psalm.
No, not even the psalm.
Okay, I want to get
animism.
back there.
Animism, right? That's what it's called?
Yeah.
When I buy guitars, I believe they speak to me. I'm not kidding. It's as crazy as it sounds, and you'll understand the connection
you like
to this
one
point.
right away, I could tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Jim just sold me a guitar. I've played a lot of guitars over the years, and I have this white Telly. You've seen it.
Yeah.
Jim works on my guitars. I have this white Telecaster. I went to Guitar Center and I said, I want you to bring me the cheapest Telly you have, not the most expensive, because I'm not going to spend 20 grand or whatever it was, but give me the most expensive Telly you can do, up to 2 grand. And I want $1,000 guitar or a $1,200 Telly. And I want to play them all in a blind test. And they're all great. They're beautiful Tellys. I was desperate for a Telly because I hadn't played one in years. And I had my mind set on getting a Telly Deluxe with the kind of split pickup. But I played this white Telly, and I did not know that it had a ding. I didn't notice the ding. And the ding made it $300. And I played this one and I was like, okay, this is the most expensive Telly. And the guy looks at me, he's like, really? This is the one I want, whatever price it is. And it was the cheapest Telly. Like, I've played a lot of guitars, and I can play 3 Gretches. I have a bunch of Gretches here. I can play 3 of the same resonators.
Right.
But only one of them sounds and feels good to me.
I've heard that recommended that, for example, if somebody told me once with ES335s, they said, don't just play one and buy it. Go and play as many as you can. Some are made better than others.
Yeah.
Some just come out of the shop better than others.
You're going to the science of it. I don't go that far.
Right.
For me, like the guitar speaks to me in some way, right? And like Dayenu, that's enough. In the same way.
I get that too, definitely.
You do too. Okay.
Yeah,
so that's a way of connecting your kind of philosophy, belief, faith to some of the seemingly inanimate objects around us, right? It speaks to you. Why does this couch, why did this chair pattern speak to me rather than the other one, right?
True.
But in the same way, it works for me with music. There are songs that I write where I have to battle for every note.
Sure.
Every chord, every lyric.
But you still have a basic concept.
Right. And so this week, Liz wrote some lyrics. It was about Appalachia.
Okay.
Right? I've never been there. I've read some books. I've seen some movies. I've listened to a lot of bluegrass.
I probably have ancestors from there.
No kidding.
Yeah.
From Ohio?
Probably. I'm just guessing.
That makes sense.
I'm definitely white trash in some sense.
Okay. Yeah. There's a whole other conversation there. So Liz, as often is the case, one of us starts us off. In fact, it's always the case. One of us starts us off. Sometimes I will start us off, but often Liz starts us off because I kind of have the music piece that I can figure out. And so she wrote these beautiful lyrics about Appalachia. And I was like, Appalachia, it's got to be bluegrass. And so I picked up this resonator right here, the blue one, and I start kind of playing around. I'm doing some slide things. I was like, okay, it's got to be open tuning, right? And I'm like thinking bluegrass. And I tried 1, 2, 3 different bluegrass things. I'm like, none of this is working.
Okay.
Let me just try something else. Like not have a preconceived notion and see what comes out.
But still on the resonator.
Okay. And that was it.
I would never know that violets grow in Appalachia. I would never know unless you told me so.
The feel, the vibe, the melody, all just flowed out of that.
Nice.
The basic chord movement came out of that. And then I was like, okay, now I understand how the melody is flowing. I just need to figure out chords in open D, which I've played a bunch in, but and I know whatever chords I know, they just didn't happen to work for this song. So I had to kind of come up with a whole arrangement.
Okay.
But just like instruments speak to you, my philosophy of creation is this is not mine. It's coming through me. It's out in the ether. And I'm like basically a giant antenna. If you believe in God, like I do, God is sending God's energy your way and you just have to tune into it and say, like to your point, now this will bring us back to, can you teach anything to God, right? Can I tap into what God is sending to me and reflect it back in a way that is pleasing to other humans, which in turn may please God, right? If you don't believe in God, then whatever, take God out of the mix. But I'm tapping into like the Campbell, world energy and reflecting something of that nature that is hopefully pleasing to other humans. And it's that human connection that, bonds us.
Well, and I would just say about the consciousness I'm speaking about, that is what we refer to as God. So it's impossible for you not to reflect God's viewpoint. That's what you do every moment of your life, whether you're creating a song or robbing a 7-Eleven. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we don't know the purpose for that. The unpronounceable name of God, right? I think really this is a metaphor for the fact that we cannot, from the physical universe, understand what God is. It's physically impossible for us. We get glimpses.
Right.
We are God, but we're playing a game with ourselves where we've forgotten that we are.
Right.
And it's for a reason. It's because we transport this experience back to the source. And we're trying out every possibility out there. I think of Woody Allen, who I know he's out of favor now, but I love him. He was a big part of my upbringing. And one of my favorite lines of his was, given a choice between the Pope and air conditioning, I'll choose air conditioning every time, right? which means I'm going to take science over religion. And yet at the same time, in some of the Jane Roberts books I read, one of the most potent quotes to me is,
Who's Jane Roberts?
she is a psychic who allegedly spoke for another personality named Seth.
Oh, you loaned me one of these
I
books.
did. And I mean, this is something I could talk about for hours. This really goes to the basis of my beliefs and where they come from. The quote being, religion tells you that your life is sinful, and science tells you that your life is an accident, and neither one of those things is true.
Mm-hmm.
And he will often go into how Darwin messed us up because we misinterpreted what he says. And we think that survival of the fittest is the rule. And that's not the rule. But this is what's messed up our society at this point in time. He actually claims that religion, even when Catholicism was so dominant, it at least gave you a belief in another world outside of this one, where science takes all of that away. It's just darkness when you're gone, and I refuse to believe that.
Yeah.
As much as I grew up in the age of space exploration, and I was totally into that as a child, and I totally love science and electronics, everything. It doesn't explain everything, and we have to get over this idea that these issues are resolved. And that's what I love about your faith, and that you are so into it, is kind of doesn't matter what your faith is as long as it's not bad for you.
Right. Exactly. Look, I mean,
and the important thing is to have the faith and to do the discipline.
Right.
For me, it's music and my work with my instruments.
Sure. And by the way, that connects, I deeply connect to that. This project is part of my service to God. I mean,
okay.
Does God need my songs? Probably not. Does God need songs? Probably not, but it's my way of trying to connect.
Well, and it comes back to the humanism thing. We're all here to help each other through this thing, whatever it is. And I think that's what you're trying to do with the Psalms. You're trying to recouch them in a more modern nomenclature.
Yeah.
And maybe even in this particular one, I mean, when you compare it to the original Psalm, it's quite different.
Yeah.
But you keep some really key points, and maybe I would ask you to talk a little more about that.
Sure.
The questioning of the students. And it seems to irk the teacher a little bit. Am I catching that right? Or is there a change in personality there?
Let's see.
When you go to the chorus.
The constant muttering about what is right drives me away from you.
Right. That's what drove me away from Protestantism. And not to say that I dislike Protestantism or that I think there's something wrong with it. The problem is not in the religion itself. It's in the people who interpret it in very strict ways and aren't flexible.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying that. This is a deeply personal thing for me.
Yeah.
The constant muttering, that is a reference to the Israelites on their way out of Egypt when they were complaining about everything. We still do it.
We are all extensions of this central source, which we refer to as God, for lack of a better word. And everything we do enriches that central source.
Right.
And the central source regards us with love and affection because we're part of it.
Right.
But we play this game of forgetting who we are and why we're here, because that's the only way we're going to learn. If we didn't have to eat, if we didn't have to sleep, if we didn't have to reproduce, life would be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the things that brought me to this whole thing was when I was young, before I would go to sleep, I was able to enter a certain frame of mind. And I had experiences there that were very different from my life experiences. I would sense a certain surrounding that was very comfortable, maybe womb-like, maybe just a memory of the womb, as far as I know. But then also, there were times when I would feel something in my hands. And as my life has progressed, I realized it was the tap guitar. And this was long before I ever even started to play guitar.
Wow.
And puberty ruined all of that, took all of that openness away. You know, when you're a child, you're living in that magical world. I remember entering a contest once when I was very young for a train, and I was convinced that I was going to win that train, and my parents had to explain to me, you may not win that train. you know? And I fully believed that train was going to be mine. And maybe that was an early lesson for me. I didn't win it.
That's the push me, pull you on this. If you don't have faith, you're never going to go into the train winning contest, right? You know, you're never going to win the lottery unless you buy a ticket. Right.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to choose faith in order to kind of immerse yourself in whatever. You're choosing
even
to be
take
a lawyer.
the first step before accomplishing a goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, like, for me, that's the point of you come to know the divine by choosing to have faith. And the divine isn't only this undefinable entity like around the world in the microphone, whatever it is.
Right.
It's the faith that if I study hard enough, I will become, fill in the blank, a lawyer, a musician, an artist, a paralegal, a dentist, ich weiß. It doesn't matter. You have to have enough faith in yourself and in whatever process you choose to explore.
Well, and there's a trap in that word that
faith
can be that it can be misconstrued to mean your devotion to God. And that's all it means.
Right.
And I see it in several different religious faiths. It's just how faithful are you to our system?
Yeah.
And I think that's the trap.
Yeah.
And I think the real importance of it is what you and I are talking about.
Yeah, I would agree.
So God learned something from Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Moses, this falls outside of the now mythological concept of God, that he's omnipotent, that he's perfect, that it's a he.
Right. Well said.
Right.
The they.
So hopefully, thankfully, God is working with us on this, right?
Your mouth to God's ears. But so that shows up, right? Right. So the student asks for guidance. Can we teach anything to God? And the teacher, who's the primary speaker of the lyrics, is terrified. Like, how do you answer this kid? Swallow terror, feeling awed. And awed is a very specific language. It's a quote from something. Yiras Hashem reishis da'as chochma umusar evilim bazu. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge.
Okay.
Right. So this student has already schooled the teacher.
Okay.
Right? So, Dayenu, enough. But the answer for me, and again, I don't know if it's clear, but for me, the answer comes in the bridge.
Yeah, the bridge. Absolutely.
So we all suffer pain and insults. Crappy things happen to all of us.
About yet.
Right. So that too is a quote. We all suffer pain and insults. It comes up towards the end. It's deep mysticism. Going back to another verse, God is close to the brokenhearted.
Because we need him more. When everything's good, you don't feel the need.
Well, I think if you're a person who's oriented towards God,
okay.
Growing up, they said, it's the poor and the wretched who feel God's closeness. The rich people don't. But on some level, for me, that's like a self-defining prophecy.
Okay.
If you're oriented, when things are good, you're going to be thanking God for what's good.
Yeah.
When things are bad, you're going to be thanking God for the things that are good within what's bad. Because, you still have food on your table, maybe, or everybody's healthy, whatever it is that you're thanking God for.
Right.
When things are good, you may still want something and you will ask God for that. When things are bad, of course you're going to ask to fix whatever's bad. So this quote, and now I'm quoting from a Hasidic source. That's all we're going to say. God is close to the brokenhearted since they suffer the same blemish as the moon. They are always close to her. Therefore, in order to bring new life to the brokenhearted, they will have a portion of that life that will be renewed. The moon renews every month in Jewish theology. Scientifically too, but we bless the moon every month.
And yeah, that leads me back to Asimov.
Yeah,
years ago, I read a wonderful article from him about how unique our moon is when you look at all the other planets and solar systems. I won't go into it, but it has to do with the size of the moon compared to the Earth, the fact that it always points one side towards us. So it's such a mystical object throughout history. It's wonderful that it comes up in this regard here.
1000%. The source goes on to say, this is called the suffering of love, because you're suffering with the moon. The suffering is born of the soul's love and not from the man himself, from the person himself. It is out of love, for the light of the small love is blemished, then pushed away from great love. Then the source gets into a level of mysticism that I don't really understand, right? Like those basic words I kind of understand.
Okay.
The point as it connects back to the song is the bridge is saying we all suffer pain and insults. And sometimes we feel love as a result, or we connect with each other as a result. The bridge goes on to say, I feel afraid. The world looks gray. Personally, and this is me speaking very personally, reverence is not my impulse. That's a direct line.
Yes.
I'm not the guy who's going to like shout, oh my God, God, you're awesome. You may be awesome. And I might say that privately to God, but like I am not going to prostrate alone. I will do it if the community does it, and then to be part of the community, I will do it. Otherwise, I will have my private relationship with God.
But the next line is the crux of the biscuit, as Frank Zappa would say. And I'm glad you brought this up.
The next line is, I want God to come out and play.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, if God came out to play, I would revere.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you know what? And maybe God does. And it's just about me to notice that.
I'm with you all the way on this. That's what I mean about the dogma interrupting the experience. I think that's the crux of the biscuit right there. I want God to come out and play. And he does.
Yeah.
He, she, it,
They.
That's our whole point.
My reminder of that is another verse in Psalms, Ta'amu, which I think it's this psalm. Ta'amu ki tov Adonai ashrei hagever yechseba. Taste and see how good the Lord is. Happy the person who takes refuge in God.
Okay.
Right? So that language, taste and see so many good things.
Yeah.
If I do taste all those good things, I will experience God and be inclined to recognize that God is out and playing, and then come to this notion of reverence. However, it's also an admonishment of God. So remember back, this is the teacher's answer to the kid's question, can we teach anything to God? And of course, I'm the teacher in this context, like, because it's my personality throughout this. What I say is, you know what? Yes, I can taste and see many, many good things, but you know what, God? Don't hide from the brewing storm. There's shit going on out there. You need to deal with it. I'm not telling you to fix it all, but pick a big thing that needs fixing. For example, hunger is something to reform. And that brings you back to the constant muttering. Don't get distracted by all the people muttering about these things. Stay focused on the big things. Take care of those. And again, this is another one. God, fix hunger, or humanity. Now that you recognize that you can taste and see so many good things, you can teach God by fixing hunger. Right? That's the message.
I read it as a kind of, like I said, that our perceptions are getting in our way on this subject, that God does come out to play.
Yeah.
He already does. It's our perceptions about it that have messed us up on
Right. We need to stop blocking that energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
With our own nervousness, with our own fear, with our own anger, with our own expectations.
So much of it is dogma to me, especially from the side of Christianity. Just this idea that God is perfect. He's immovable. He knows everything. He knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows when you've been bad or good, you know.
That's Santa. By the way, Jewish theology is the same way. God is everything, but God is perfect. There's language for that in Hebrew, and there's sources, but there is no singular Jewish theology. Jewish theology is a morass of philosophies and perspectives.
And it's okay to get together and talk about that in Judaism. That's what I love about it.
But look, you have your fractures too. There was many years where the Hasidim wouldn't talk to the Misnagdim, those who believe in mysticism and connecting to God through nature versus those who believe in kind of worshiping God through the study of Talmud and text. Right. But that's not the case anymore. Those worlds have blended.
And you don't grab them and throw them on a stake and set them on fire.
No, it was just the shul you didn't go to.
Now, and let me take you back. This may be irrelevant.
No such thing.
And maybe a tangent. There was the whole thing in there about Moses and God talking, and Moses is asking him, why did you give this to me and not everybody? Am I reading that correctly?
One of the interesting things about that particular passage to me is Elokecha is your singular. Elokechem is your plural. Elokeinu is our.
Okay.
It could have been Elokeinu, right? By the way, for example, like if there's a creed to Judaism, it's the Shema.
Okay.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu. The Lord is our God. Adonai Echad. The Lord is one. But the Eloheinu is our God.
Okay.
Right? So if God is one of us or is us, God might have said Elokeinu, Eloheinu. But that's not what the Midrash brings up. That it's very specific. Elokecha singular, Elokechem plural.
Okay.
So there's a separation of God in this particular Midrash, but God becomes one of us in other places. And we were talking about the different manifestation of God. So like oversimplifying, the unpronounceable name is written as Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, which becomes Yahweh,
Okay.
right? In Jehovah's Witnesses and a variety of other Christian communities. In Hebrew, in Orthodox tradition, it becomes Adonai,
Okay.
which literally means my master,
Okay.
because we're not trying to pronounce that word. That's one manifestation. Adonai is a manifestation of God's feminine aspect,
Okay.
the one that has compassion, rachamim. Right? Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanon. Lord God, a God of compassion and mercy.
Okay.
Right? So Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey is the God that manifests compassion.
Okay.
Elohim is the God of judgment. You have both of these, but you also have yet another manifestation of God in Judaism called the Shekhinah, which means your neighbor, but it's known as the feminine aspect of God.
Okay.
And that's the love thy neighbor as thyself. You know, it's the God of love, the Shekhinah. So Elohechem also means your plural judge.
So are you telling me Judaism is not a monotheistic religion?
It is a monotheistic religion,
Okay.
but God has many facets, right? And I learned this about Hinduism when Shari and I were in India on a trip with the American Jewish World Service. You know, our guide explained to us around the same time, maybe Rabbi Shimon Sperber wrote a book about this. It used to be the case that Orthodox Judaism thought of Hinduism as idolatry, but Rabbi Sperber made the case that this tour guide made, which is that Hinduism has one God and Ganesh and Shiva are all manifestations of the one God. So in that way, Hinduism is another monotheistic religion. And it makes sense that something that is all powerful would have many facets.
It fits in with my whole animism thing too, is that our perceptions cannot encompass what God is. It's just impossible. Like I said, I think that the unspeakable name is really just a metaphor for the fact that we cannot, in our puny human minds, because we're stuck inside of time, God is outside of time.
Right.
And we're playing a game stuck inside of time where we're just not going to be able to get it no matter what we do. We can feel it. We can sense it. I guess my question is, why did God just share it with Moses and not with everybody?
I think it actually bears reading the source.
Is it a matter of syntax, I think is what I'm asking, because the plural and singular are so important.
I think ultimately it is a matter of syntax, and Moses schools God on the issue.
Okay.
Right? Because Moses throws God's language back at God.
Okay.
Right. So I'm just going to read the whole thing. This is Bamidbar Rabbah, 1933. Another interpretation of Bamidbar 21:17 or Numbers 21:17. Then Israel sang. This is one of the three things that Moses said before the Holy One, blessed be God. And God said, my brackets back to Moses, you have taught me. Moses said in front of God, sovereign of the universe, from where does Israel know what they did was wrong? Did they not grow up in Egypt? And all of Egypt are idolaters. And when you gave the Torah, you did not give it to them. They were also not standing there, as it is stated, and the people stood from afar. And you only gave it to me, as it is stated. That was in Exodus 20:18. And this one is, Exodus 24:1, and God said to Moses, ascend to the Lord. And when you gave the statements, the 10 commandments, you did not give the 10 commandments to the Israelites. You did not say, I am the Lord your plural God, but rather I am the Lord your singular God. Hence you said it to me. Did I sin? Moses asks. The Holy One, blessed be God, said to him, by your life you have spoken well, you have taught me. From now on, I will only say the expression, I am the Lord your plural God. So what Moses did there was essentially, and it's a classic biblical, maybe Jewish, but certainly biblical modality, where the speaker turns the language of their conversational counterpart back against them to make their point. Abraham does it. Moses does it multiple times, at least according to the Midrash. Moses says, okay, you only gave the Torah to me, so it's my Torah. And God's, well, no, it's for everybody. And Moses says, oh, okay, great. So Moses has God become part of the community again by expanding the gift from Moses alone to all of the Israelites.
Yeah. Moses is one of the Israelites.
Correct.
Yeah.
God may have given the Torah, God's wisdom in Jewish tradition, to the Israelites, but it wasn't intended to be exclusively for the Israelites.
Okay.
It was God's wisdom to give to the world. And this is one of the reasons why the Torah obligates Jews to be an or lagoyim, a light unto the nations. It doesn't mean special. It means be a good fucking example, right? And in particular, model how to make God's name known so that everyone wants to engage in this thing called God. Right. And by the way, you're there in my worldview. Like, okay, you have a different technology towards getting to the divine.
Sure.
I'm great with that.
I think there are many, many paths. There are many paths as there are people.
Yeah. I think that's
are
exactly
you on the path
right.
or are you not?
Exactly right.
Yeah. Lovely.
Awesome.
Thank you. This has been fascinating.
This has been fascinating for me too, Jim. You are such a great guy, such a deep thinker, and your music really reflects it.
Well, thank you. It's so wonderful to have you as a friend, and I feel the same way about your music. It has enriched my life, and I really am grateful for the opportunity to come do this with you.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Sure.
See you soon. Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Jim Wright for joining me, and to him and Emil Stern for their help in producing this episode, to E. Rose for his help producing the song in this episode, to Jessica Hannah-Sweetler for her help on social media, to Liat Silvera for designing the podcast logo, and to my wife Shari, who is always willing to play. You can find Come Out and Play and all the other songs in this song cycle on most platforms that stream or download music, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. It really helps if you share the episodes and songs, and if you like, comment, and subscribe to the podcast and to me as an artist on your favorite platforms. In the next episode of The Rest is Commentary, I will be talking with Allison Lee, my friend and mentor and the Chief Philanthropy Officer at the National Library of Israel, USA. We discuss the January 2025 LA fires. Is Psalm 83 a warning? Does it invite revenge or a moral choice? Memory, displacement, and inherited objects. Cultural exclusion and identity after October 7th. Rejecting extremism through empathy and nuance. Choosing dialogue, building, and human connection. And so much more, all inspired by Allison's thoughts after listening to Fire, inspired by Psalm 83 and, of course, the 2025 LA area fires. Please join us.